Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
Wednesday, and all of our guests today brought to you by our title sponsor, Able Auctions, ableauctions.ca. We're still waiting on Craig Button. I believe he's in transit down in Vegas.
Yeah.
If we don't get him on today, we'll get him on tomorrow. Fingers crossed. Meanwhile, our title sponsor, Able Auctions. July 6th, Able Auctions will sell 15 brand new hot tubs. Over $250,000 of patio furniture, 100 very high-end DOST e-bikes, over $100K of high-end laminate flooring, 50, count them, 50 pizza ovens, and a lot more. What? Pardon me?
I've never seen a pizza oven like that before.
The one that looks like a hot tub?
Yeah, no, the one in the right corner there. I've never seen that. Is that how they use them in the...
I'm going to say yes. But I'm with you. I haven't seen one like that either.
Can you buy one of those?
Usually there's a brick involved. I'm going to say that if it's at Able, you can buy it. You can bid on it and go nuts. So 50 pizza ovens and a lot more. Everything from 70 jet hot tubs to patio furniture to flooring and e-bikes. All sold in one day at ableauctions.ca. For information on this auction, other auctions, or to get your business assets sold at auction, go to ableauctions.ca. A-B-L-E auctions.ca. I'll always think about buying a hot tub.
Right with you.
I haven't yet. Almost a couple of years ago, I didn't. Speaking of hot tubs, I don't know where that. I don't know what to do for a segue there.
Speaking of
this
Craig,
guy's not all wet. Craig Button down
Craig in a hot tub
down in Las Vegas. TSN scouting director. I know you enjoyed that, Craig. How are you in Nevada?
It's hot, and at least it's not humid. But there's no hot tubs here in Vegas that I've seen. And anybody that would buy a hot tub or go into a hot tub, I would have to seriously question their judgment.
Well, by the way, looking very sharp in the suit. Excellent choice there.
Always.
You did that just for us, I'm sure. Hey, the Panthers win Game 7, Craig. What do you make of the way, and you're TSN scouting director, former NHL general manager, make of the way the Panthers went about icing a Stanley Cup winning team, only 4 of their own draft picks on that roster?
Well, much like Vegas, right, who came into the league in 2017 through expansion, had draft picks, traded a lot of their draft picks and their draft selections to improve their team. What I would say is that Florida, much like Vegas, were bold. And you consider a couple of years ago when they were the President's Trophy winners and they got to the second round of the playoffs. They scored 3 goals in a 4-game sweep to the Tampa Bay Lightning, and Bill Zito said, "We got to change this." I mean, it was a big trade that he made, trading Huberdeau and Weegar for Matthew Tkachuk. But he didn't stop there. He didn't stop being bold. He kept looking at his team and saying, "If we want to be competitive, we want to talk about winning." Every NHL team talks about winning. But what are you prepared to do to win? And I'm not talking about being reckless. I'm talking, when I use the word bold, it also requires being shrewd, being measured, being cunning, and everything that goes with it. Let's not forget that they lost some defenders from last year's team. So who did they go and get? They went and got Dmitry Kulikov. They went and got Nico Mikkola. They went and got Oliver Ekman-Larsson. And they weren't looking for those players to come in and be frontline players. They said, listen, this is what we need to round out our blue line. So you get Tkachuk, who's a big-time difference maker. You have to work at your blue line after getting to the Stanley Cup final last year. But when I watched how Bill Zito and his manager group worked, it was with the idea that they were looking for competitive players that would be difference makers when the challenges became the greatest. And I think after losing 3 consecutive games to the Oilers after going ahead 3-0, I think you saw that on display in Game 7. All the things they were looking for were on display in that Game 7, and players that were certainly instrumental to their success during the regular season came up quite large in that Game 7 victory. But if you want to win, there's got to be a sense of boldness and then taking the initiative. That's what Bill Zito did.
Well, this might hurt Vancouver fans a little bit, but what kind of a job did OEL, Oliver Ekman-Larsson, do in Florida of resurrecting his career, Craig?
And let's keep in mind what he went to, where he went. He went to be a bottom pair defenseman. He went there to go in and play. He wasn't asked to play big minutes. I mean, you watched Oliver Ekman-Larsson play. I've watched Oliver Ekman-Larsson play since he was 16 years old. He's not the same player today that he was 8 years ago. And you got to understand where a player is at, and then understand, okay, does he fit for what we're looking for? And I think that Oliver was a really nice fit there, as was Dmitry Kulikov. Paul Maurice had Dmitry Kulikov in Winnipeg, and he said that Dimitri's a different player now than the player I had in Winnipeg, but we're also asking him to do different things here than we asked him to do in Winnipeg. And you look at that pair of Kulikov and Oliver Ekman-Larsson, it was a really good, strong pairing for the Florida Panthers, but they were never, I'm going to use a Ken Hitchcock term, they were never scaled up the lineup where they were forced to play outside of their capabilities. And I think that's another big key in terms of building your team. Getting players into the right slots where they can perform to the best of their abilities.
Hey, Craig, the NHL final being so late sure doesn't give the Panthers and Oilers a heck of a lot of time. They got UFA, some big ones on both sides. Do you think the NHL does something about this? I mean, it's really late into the summer, and they just awarded the cup.
Yeah, they did, but we're talking about two teams, and by the way, they don't have a first-round draft pick, so they'll get an extra day to prepare for the second day. You know, teams. I mean, what you're doing on the ice is different than what you're doing with the draft. And certainly all the work that's being put in for the draft is going on. Whether your team is playing like the Edmonton Oilers and the Florida Panthers were on Monday evening, or you're not. So that work is being done. I know that there's a lot of talk about the season, but you know, we look at different challenges and where you're trying to position the league to take the greatest advantage. Starting earlier, do we want to start in September? No, we're starting early in October now. But we also want international hockey, and we want best-on-best hockey. We want to see players in the Olympics. Well, that comes with a schedule, and that comes with some areas that are not ideal. And the NHL teams would certainly, Rick, like to have a little bit more time be with the end of the Stanley Cup playoffs. The draft, I think the draft, trying to get a little bit of separation between the draft and free agency would be my greater focus if I had some say in this, because you know you're leaving Vegas on June 29th and you're going to be right up and running, you know, for July 1st free agency. I'd like to see a little bit more gap there in terms that that's collectively bargained. The free agent window opens up on July 1st, so that will have to wait until the next CBA comes about in 2026.
Craig, Canucks have 8 UFAs. I don't think they're close with anyone. There's a lot of, I wouldn't say panic in the market, but hey, look, Noah Zadorov, Joshua Myers, Bluger, no one's been done yet. But in your eyes, still ample time to get it done, or have the Canucks said in their mind that we're moving on from these guys?
I don't know if necessarily there's a path to say with certainty that it'll get it done. Rick, you know, you're right on top of this, and you just said that, like, you know, it doesn't appear that anything is imminent. But at the same time, you know, it doesn't mean there can't be something accomplished. I mean, the agents are talking to other teams and trying to understand what may be out there. Patrick Alvin and his group are talking. You're working on mutual paths here at this point in time. You're working with your current crop, understanding what the price tag is for them and what's realistic. And then what you're also doing is, okay, if we can't get these players done, what other opportunities can exist? And that's what goes back to my previous, giving the teams a greater time frame to operate between the draft and July 1st. I think would be beneficial. I think it would be beneficial to the teams, and I think it would ultimately be beneficial for the players as well. But they're working on dual pass right now. They're not just working on seeing what will unfold with their own unrestricted free agents. They're also allowing for the potential that, hey, we may have to move in a new direction, but they're not going to wait on that until July 3rd. They got to be ready to act, and certainly you have to believe. And I would be hugely surprised that the Vancouver Canucks aren't ready to go in whatever direction they need to.
Craigslist. NHL Draft begins Friday in Vegas. We all know about Macklin Celebrini from this neck of the woods going number 1 to San Jose. You have, if I'm not mistaken, Russian forward Ivan Demidov at number 2 to Chicago. How come?
I think Ivan Demidov is much like Nikita Kucherov in terms of their skill set. A mercurial talent. I mean, every looks like Kucherov could be the MVP again in the NHL. They drafted a generational player last year in Connor Bedard. To get a duo, Bedard and Demidov, that could give nightmares to every opponent they play against, I don't think presents itself very often. I said this to Scott Powers, who writes for The Athletic in Chicago, and I said there's lots of good defensemen in this draft, but when I consider how dynamic Demidov is and what it could mean for him and Bedard playing together, I don't think it's 1 + 1 = 2. I think 1 + 1 could equal 3. And certainly these types of players don't come along, and I think it would be a great situation for the Chicago Blackhawks to take advantage of.
So much going on this week. We look forward to it all. Craig, stay cool down there. I mean, you're always cool, but especially this week in Vegas. Stay cool down there. Thanks for this.
Yeah, thank you, you guys. We'll talk next Tuesday. We'll have some free agent talk to recap.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And draft
talk.
talk.
Yes.
Thanks, Craig.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks.